working in the Oklahoma hills where I was born. But is that...
Good morning. Welcome to The Way It Was. Today, our special guest is Mr. Kenneth Eck from Healdton, whom everybody, I think, knows him. And he's been active in everything. And Ken, I want you to focus on This Is Your Life, Kenneth Eck, and the way it was when you were growing up. And we have, I appreciate the old pictures you brought that we will be sharing with our viewers. And I'd like to invite the special friends at the Wilson Nursing Center in joining us this morning, and each one of you. And I hope you enjoyed this morning as Mr. Eck shares his life with us. Mr. Eck, I would like for you to, I'll just call you Ken. I would like for you to start in and tell him who your parents were and where you were born. And
okay, well, I was born in Kansas, and we lived in a little town in Elma, Kansas. It's about 35 miles west of Topeka, and my father was, father and mother grew up together, so they just dated and everything and finally married. And my father was, his folks owned a lumber yard, and his father died at an early age, so he was the manager of the lumber yard, Eck Lumber Company in Elma, Kansas. It's the county seat of Obalsa County in just west of Topeka. And so I was born there, and my father decided he wanted to go to the oil field, so he left Elma and moved to Healdton ahead of us, and then brought us down here when I was 9 months old. So my sister was 9 years older than I was, and we all came down here in 1917. And I just really liked Healdton, and it's been my home ever since, of course. And so I don't know. We've just planted our roots there, you know. And
well,
even though I was born in Kansas, I really am an Oklahoman.
You brought a picture of you with your parents when you were small.
Yeah.
I think we can share that. And that was a fire. Now tell about that.
An oil field fire, and that's my father and my mother and me, and I'm of course just a baby there. And we're in the Rounds and Porter Lumber Company car. It was an old Model T, and one that they drove around. You know, he drove in all over the oil field, I guess. And as you can see, why there was a big fire there. I don't remember that, of course. I was pretty young, probably a year old.
Probably an oil field fire.
Yeah, oil field.
By your parents going.
Yes, an oil field fire. Yeah.
Okay. And then your dad was the bookkeeper or something at the lumber.
Rounds and Porter Lumber Company. Yes, and we lived in the old Flag Hotel until they built the building where the lumber company's office was, and then we lived upstairs over the lumber company, right on Main Street in Healdton. It's about where M&M Supply is now.
Really? And I'm sure the streets weren't paved.
No, they weren't. They had mud knee deep, I think, sometimes. And they had wood sidewalks. I remember one time I was downtown, I was small, and I looked down between the cracks of the wood sidewalk, and I saw 25 cents or two under there, and I asked my father if I could take a stick and put some gum on it and reach down and get it. He wouldn't let me. And so I really wanted to get that money from under the sidewalk. We went on up the street. I remember that same time. I don't remember how old I was, but I was wearing a sailor suit, and I was about that tall, I guess. And anyway, we went in this hardware store, and there was a man who was drunk in there, and he was wearing a gun. And he pulled that gun out, and he shot a hole in the floor. It looked like it was about that big around, right in front of me.
Oh, my goodness.
And Lem Bates, who was the chief of police at that time, came and got him, and then he picked me up and held me in his arms, and I looked him right in the nose. I thought, boy, he's got the biggest nose of anybody I ever saw. Of course, I was small, and he was big. Anyway, I was a little scared of the policeman. But anyway, I always remember that big hole in the floor.
And, well, how many children were in your family?
2, my sister and I. Grace, she later married Frank Johnson, and he was involved with the Robert Johnson Dry Goods store there in Healdton for a number of years. Robert Johnson Dry Goods was in Worth, and it was in Healdton, and it was also in Clemscott. They had one up at Clemscott at one time. We have a picture there of the store, and I don't know which one it is. But he,
Okay, let's show.
There it is. Well, that's Mr. Johnson on the left side. And anyway, he decided to move to Healdton, and I rode my bicycle behind. They loaded that whole building in Worth on a truck, you know, and all of the whatever it takes to move a building. And I rode on my bicycle all the way to Healdton following that truck, and then they moved it in, and it was right on Main Street. And later on they put a brick front on it, I think. But Robert Johnson Dry Goods was there for years, up until Mr. Johnson developed asthma, and he had to leave and move to Arizona, and my brother-in-law Frank operated the store there for some time.
So this was their dry goods store.
Yeah,
This reminds me of the Brimers store here in Wilson.
I really don't know which store that is, whether it was the one in Word or Healdton, or whether it was in Clemscott, but I've been in the Clemscott store. I think it was much, much smaller than that, the Clemscott.
Well, on this, with you living in Healdton all of your life, you've seen the progress and everything, and you've seen the schools improve. You went to school in Healdton. Tell some of your classmates or some of your teachers or some of the...
I started out in Sunset when I was 6 years old, and I had a lot of classmates that are still alive. Gene Vickery was one of them, and Johnny Allen, we recently lost him, and went clear through school with all the little boys. B.C. Reno, well, he came later. I'm sorry, he moved there later. His father was a machinist there in a machine shop. Let's see, there was, and girls, Merle Johnson and Roosevelt Camel, who is now Skidmore, lives in Ardmore. There's just a number of kids that are still alive. And we have a reunion of our 1934 class, you know, every year. And sometimes we have a pretty good bunch come, especially on our 25th and 50th anniversary.
Yes. Was Gene Vickery in the same class?
Yes, Gene Vickery.
And, so you two dynamic men. No wonder so many things have been done in honor of your class.
And Josephine Tahar, who lives up in Alpha. And anyway, we had a wonderful class.
Well, do you think that, I know back then you probably didn't have a car going to school, or...
Oh, no. We were lucky to have a bicycle when we went to school, ride to school.
And ride the bicycle to even when we were 16.
Now a kid who's 16 years old thinks that they have to have a car at that time, regardless of their circumstances of their parents. They have to have a car, And you mentioned some of my teachers. I had Miss Garrison, and Mary Frost, of course, is well known all over the country. Everybody thought she had an electric paddle. You've heard of that, I guess. But anyway, she had an electric paddle. We never did see it, and were never whipped with that. But anyway, that was a thing that went around all the time among the kids. And but Miss Frost is a wonderful person, and she was
strict disciplinarian.
Yes, and eventually she was a counselor there at Healdton after she was principal for years and years and years.
Okay, you went on and you attended college. Where did you go to college?
Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford. Graduated from pharmacy school there.
And then you served in the military?
Yeah, I didn't go in as a chief pharmacist mate, but I came out as chief pharmacist mate from the Navy. And you had to have 6 months overseas duty before you could become a chief, so I finally attained that when I was in Guam for 6 months. But incidentally, I ran into Gene Vickery over there. He was with the Army, and Gene was over there, and a lot of Healdton fellas were there in different. Some of them were in the CBs, and Jack Ham was in the Marine Corps, 3rd Marine Division, and Alec Hughes was Lucille Hughes' husband.
yeah.
He was there with the CBs, and Harvey Hutchison, and Johnny Allen. And
You know, when you go through something, terrible times like
Yeah.
that, and you know someone and your friend, you become closer. You're
That's right,
almost like
that's
blood
right,
relatives.
yeah.
You're so close.
Yeah, and we have all been in the American Legion together, you know, in the later years at home. I'm commander of the American Legion now, although it's almost not functional because we gave our building to the city for to house the work center, you know.
Well, I think Wilson's American
Yeah.
Legion post is about the same thing.
Yeah, we send the boys to Boys State, and we do things. We are now selling poppy boards, you know, and so forth. Help send the boys to Boys State and do things that we have donated monies to the library and different things over there. We still function.
Kenneth, now did you marry a girl from Healdton?
Yes, I married a girl who was she was 3 classes behind me at school, Weta Landon, and we had 3 sons, Mark and Alan, Mark, and Dana. And she died in 1986, and I later on married Lorraine Rubottom, who was a widow.
Yeah.
Her husband died 11 years before that, and so we married and we're very happy.
That's good. Okay, you, on going back, did you live in Healdton, in town, when you were growing up and with...
Yes, we always lived in town. I never did live out in the country. And
okay, what were some of the
so
jobs?
talk about the chores.
Yes,
you mentioned that.
yes,
Chores,
what were some of your...
well, we always had chickens, and sometimes we had ducks, sometimes we had guineas, and sometimes we had turkeys, cross between a turkey and a chicken. That was interesting. Of course, I fed the chickens and I gathered the eggs, did things like that. But I wasn't, of course, living in town. I didn't have very many chores.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the grocery store and things like that, you know, for Mama. But I had a good life. I enjoyed my young life. And, always had friends. Did a lot of playing, you know, like kids do. And we didn't have to have very sophisticated toys. In those days, we had a tee made out of wood and then a hoop and rolled it down the street. And we made skateboards with us, put skates on there and then have a handle on it and run down.
It was simple.
Yeah, simple thing. And we'd take a 2x4 maybe and then put a couple of pop lids on the front for lights and put a string on it and pull it around as a car, you know. Like just a piece of a 2x4. There were a lot of things that we did that we had to make do, you know.
And had fun doing it.
That's right, had fun doing it.
Kenneth?
Christmas was always a big thing.
Yes. Ken, there's so many things in your life that I want to cover. You have been in business in Healdton for how many years?
Well, actually, I was a partner in Taylor Drug Store, and then we later named it Taylor Eck, and then my sister came into business,
Johnson and Eck.
Johnson and Eck, and then later on it was Eck Drug Incorporated. I had my boys in there. I have 2 boys who are pharmacists. Both their wives are pharmacists now. And so Mark has the Healdton store, and Biff had bought a store in Waurika, and he has a drug store over there. He and his wife.
Well, you have always been interested in politics also.
Oh, yes.
And I think you brought...
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about that. In 1978, my good friend Bill Cornish, who has the Ford agency over at Healdton, suggested, I believe it was late in May, and all of everybody else was already campaigning since January, you know, or maybe even before that. Spencer Bernard was running for lieutenant governor, and old Bill said, I'll pay half of your fee if you will run for lieutenant governor. We were sitting there talking one night. So we went to Oklahoma City the next day, and he paid $250, and I paid $250, and I registered to run for lieutenant governor. That was in May. And of course, the election was not far off, but we campaigned. Bill and I went all over the state, and I didn't realize how big Oklahoma was. We did well in the South, but
Up around Tulsa and everywhere.
Yeah, over there and there. Well, we went to Tulsa too, but we didn't cover the whole country as well. We put these fence stradders all over the country though, and I've still got about 1,000. I think I'll run again.
Just put your check on Eck.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, and, anyway, it was a fun time, and I enjoyed it, even though I didn't win. And Spencer Bernard has become a close friend of mine since then.
I met him,
In fact, I campaigned for him after I lost in the primary. Well, then I helped him later on, and we become fast friends. In fact, he visited me just 2 weeks ago. He came by and visited with me.
Well, that's good. I think we have some pictures. I don't know what next to how we had them, but let's share so that the viewers can see. You brought several pictures, and we'll just have the next one put up, and you can relate on what and tell about that. Now, who is this?
That's Everett Ford, and he worked for Teal Grocery over here in Wilson for a long time, and married a Wilson girl, Hester. Uh-oh.
That's okay.
I know what it is, but anyway, married Hester Ford, and they moved to Healdton. He was a salesman for Brook Owen Wholesale, which was a large wholesale grocery store in Healdton at that time. And then later on, he went into business for himself and had a tobacco and candy business. And later on, he and his father bought the Benny Beals Bakery and became Ford's Bakery. We had a lot of good Ford's bread for years. And, I'll never forget the incident that happened with my oldest son, Alan. Everett was teasing him. He was always teasing him, and Alan piped up and said, "Well, I'll tell you one thing, we don't always eat Ford's bread." Of course, that just like stabbing Everett in the heart, because he didn't want anybody not to use Ford's bread. And so anyway, he said, "That's another thing that you're good at whipping for." So anyway, I wanted to whip him because he didn't.
Okay, now this is...
That's Everett on the left, and Everett's gone now, and so is Shorty Claxton. That's Shorty Claxton, who was a deputy sheriff. That's taken in the drugstore, and Shorty was a deputy sheriff for Carter County. And I assume that's in the early 60s. I'm not sure of the date just exactly, but they were two fine fellows, and
good friends.
They've been good. We were missed them, yeah.
Okay, we're going to go next now. Then I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes focusing on you. This is...
I'll tell you about that too. That's the round and porter car, like you saw me in a little while ago, where the oil field fire. But that's the Ohio City's gas company, and that's the superintendent and the bookkeeper of that company. And my father took their picture there. He, I guess, probably did some business with him. Maybe he furnished the lumber to build that building or something. But anyway, he was always out in the field selling things, And later on, he was with Harry Abel's machine shop. He was the manager of that for years, 12 years, I believe.
Okay, and then we have one. I think we're going to start focusing on your life, Ken.
Okay.
I know you're very modest, but I want to focus and share with the viewers. Now, this was a special time in your life. I see there for you. What is that?
That's, I was Citizen of the Year in 1961. That's Al Jennings, the well-known banker in Healdton on the right side, and Bruce Palmer of Channel 9 on the other side. That was at a banquet there for the Chamber of Commerce in Healdton, and 1961.
Okay, and you were Citizen of the Year. And then I think we have this was when you were inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Pharmacy Hall of Fame. Yes, that was in June of this year.
I thought it was recent. I remembered reading about that.
That picture is taken at the museum in Guthrie, which the Pharmacy Heritage Foundation operates, and I'm most recently a president of that group. It's the Frontier Drugstore Museum in Guthrie, and if anybody's there, they sure should go by and see that. It's a great place. We work there as volunteers at various times on weekends.
That's great.
Different pharmacists from over the state work there. They have a full-time curator, but weekends and holidays, well, we do have to take over this. and worked there.
In Guthrie.
Yeah.
Okay, Ken, I'm going to read some of your accomplishments here, and after I go through them, to share with the viewers on your accomplishments, then anything that you want to go back over, well, we will. But you were chief pharmacist mate in the U.S. Navy during World War II, past post commander of VFW, post commander of American Legion, past president of Healdton Lions and Healdton Chamber of Commerce, past chairman of Chickasaw Library System, current chair of Area Aging on Aging Department of SODA, member of the advisory board of Healdton Oil Museum, graduate of Southwestern Oklahoma State University School of Pharmacy, partner, as you said, in the Taylor Eck Drug, Johnson Eck Drug, and Eck Drug Company Incorporated. You were, and as we said, Healdton Citizen of the Year in 1961, member of the Oklahoma State Board of Pharmacy for 7 years, member of the Oklahoma Professional Responsibility Tribunal and arm of the Oklahoma Supreme Court for 5 years.
That's an interesting thing. That's a disciplinary thing. Officers in the Bar Association in Oklahoma City, and they discipline lawyers. And I was what would you say, a public member of that group. Not a lawyer, but they have so many people are on that board other than lawyers, you know.
Okay, are
That's
you
kind of interesting.
like citizens, just ordinary citizens to serve on that?
Appointed by the governor. Yeah.
Yes.
Governor and I appointed me that twice.
Okay, and then are you still you were vice chief master the last year you served?
Last year I served there, yeah, that's vice chief master. The chief master would be a lawyer, an attorney. The vice chief master would be the person who's over these citizens, other citizens.
Candidate for lieutenant governor for the state of Oklahoma in 1978. Past president of the Oklahoma Pharmaceutical Association. Past president of the Oklahoma Pharmacy Heritage Foundation. Served in Oklahoma Silver-Haired Legislature in the House for 2 terms and in the Senate 1 term. And see, a lot of people don't realize the benefits that come to senior citizens has to have someone like you lobbying for them in order to get these benefits passed in legislature.
That's right.
And this was a very important role to the silver-haired people in our state.
Yeah, I was floor leader in the Senate that year. That's the second. The president is not the president pro tem, and then the floor leader is the next one. And so, in during the year, I was a senator.
Okay, you received the Bowl of Hygeia Award.
But that's the most prestigious award that we have.
On the pharmacy?
In pharmacy, they give one in every state, and then we come together and meet in company headquarters, and it was in Richmond, Virginia. The company gives it, but it's one of the most prestigious awards that we have.
Oh, well, gee, that's great, Ken.
All 50 states come together then, and the provinces of Canada.
And see, so many people don't know all this about you.
Well,
if I hadn't have said, Ken, I want this written down, then now this is quite an honor, inducted into the Oklahoma Pharmacy Hall of Fame just in June of this year, which you touched on. And then you were Who's Who in South and Southwest 3 times, and Who's Who in Science and Engineering twice. And you told me just this month you received notice of your inclusion in the first edition of the new Who's Who in Medicine and Healthcare.
That's a brand new one. Yeah, that's quite an honor to be in that, you know, I mean, the first edition of that.
How modest, how modest he is. Ken, you've worked hard to achieve the things that you have done, and you're not you weren't selfish. You've been lucky, yes. But you weren't selfish. You were working for your fellow man, and as to make the world a better place.
Yeah, and you know, I never failed to go down at night or any time off hours to fill a prescription for somebody, and I had that help me out one time. I was going to the fair at Ardmore, and I had a load of cattle to show for my boys at the fair, and I had a flat over in Lone Grove, and of course no way in the world I could jack that up with a little jack. The pickup was loaded with these cattle and very heavy, and the fella came driving up in his car, and he said, he had a big jack like they used in the filling station, and he said, "Say," he said, "you got out one night at midnight and got some medicine for my kids." He said, "I want to help you." And he started jacking that car up, and he changed the tire, and of course the tire was ruined. I finally had to buy one, but he put it on my spare, and I went on to the fair, came back later, and picked up a new tire. But anyway, I was very, very pleased that happened, and so a lot of things
That's like
turn around, you know.
That's like the seeds you sow.
Yeah.
If they're good, you're going to reap good seeds.
Yeah.
And that's what you have strived to do. And I've been affiliated with you in a few things, and I've enjoyed that. I hope our viewers this morning have thoroughly enjoyed you sharing your life. There was so much we could not have covered it all in this short period of time, but it's been such a great pleasure having you here.
Now, you had a citizen here, Dow Roberts, years ago. Do you remember him?
Yes.
They were our neighbors, and there's Smith and Roberts Dry Goods in Healdton, and they moved to Wilson, and they had a little girl married Joe Roberts, and they lived down here at the house is still there, down by 306 Main Street. The house is still there, and I always had a crush on Mary Jo, and I came to Wilson to a skating party one time when I was, probably a senior in high school, and I saw her, but I didn't even tell her who I was or anything. I was bashful, you know. But anyway, Dow Roberts, I think, was in dry goods business over here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's neat, and that's been, as the saying goes, a lot of water's run under the bridge
way
since
back
then.
in the 30s, yeah, I think they were.
Well, Ken, it is good having you here. I hope you have enjoyed our show. And remember, smile and be happy.